Welcome to Bridge to Local with Affinity Group, the podcast that connects manufacturers to local operators. With deep industry experience and a proven track record of successful partnerships, Affinity Group is your bridge to driving growth and seizing opportunities in food service. Let's build success together, one connection at a time.
Welcome to your Bridge to Local. I'm your host, Mindy Kopaz. Today, we're diving into one of the most critical and evolving dynamics in food service today, the operator's path to purchase. From the complexity of sourcing decisions to the rising role of digital tools, operators are navigating more steps, more information, and more options than ever before. So how do manufacturers, sales agencies, and partners better support this journey? And what does success look like from the operator's point of view? We'll kick things off by framing the modern path to purchase, share some new research findings from Affinity Group, and explore how manufacturers and sales partners can help operators thrive through collaboration, innovation, and a deeper understanding of their needs. We're joined today by an expert panel with unique perspectives from across the value chain.
Good morning. I'm Ben Wexler. I'm president of a company called Custom Culinary. We're a flavor system company in the industry that does sauces and bases and gravies, and very happy to be here this morning.
Good morning. I'm Joe Sefton with the Affinity Group. We're a sales and marketing agency, and I'm the VP of Sales for the Midwest.
Today, we're talking operators' path to purchase. To provide a little background, our team executed a field study in January of 2025. And what that means is basically we worked with our partners at FoodMix to refresh our path to purchase study that we had done in 2021. And that I think FoodMix did in 2017-ish. To trend and to track what's happening and what changes are happening over time. Because of the relationships our team has with operators across the industry and across all segments in every market, we ask them to conduct these surveys face-to-face or through a phone call with their known partners. So we know we're getting purchasing or decision makers, not just the dishwasher that the boss handed the phone to gather this data. So we touch every segment, every market, and we just get a better picture of industry-wide what's happening out there. Some key takeaways from the Path to Purchase study are that the number of steps operators are taking to make purchasing decisions has actually grown since 2021. The information that they're researching, the factors influencing their decisions have grown. Have you guys seen that, heard that? Are team members talking at all about that?
So I think, yes, they are. And technology has been both a huge enabler of our communication with operators and different groups within the supply chain. But like a lot of things, it's also created a huge challenge, because there are so many different channels and venues and ways in which both we can distribute and enable communication, and it's overwhelming, I think, to all of us as individuals and certainly to our operators as well, who are trying to run their business on a daily basis, which is a full-time job in and of itself. So sorting through how to manage and find the most effective path, I think, is still a work in progress for us.
Yeah, I would agree. In some cases, the amount of information has created hurdles as opposed to creating an easier path.
And I think if we compare it to 2021, where decisions were happening so much quicker, right, and the world was so unsteady, the fact that they're settling in and taking more steps makes perfect sense to me. Like, I wasn't super surprised by that. When we think about what was happening in the world and in the industry in 2021, we had supply chain disruption all over the place. We had regulations and rules changing every time somebody sneezed. We had just so much uncertainty that now we've stabilized, right, knock on wood, a little bit more. And I think operators can really take their time and think about things do some research as they're making decisions and gather as much information as they can.
Yeah, I would say at that time, it wasn't a matter of not even quality sometimes. It was just they needed to get the products. So there wasn't a lot of focus on choices. There wasn't a lot of focus on necessarily quality, certainly not innovation. It was just how do we keep the doors open? How do we bring products in to keep food flowing?
Yeah, to your point, I think it was really the opposite almost of innovation. I would say it was innovative in terms of how people work to stay open and stay functioning. But at that point in time in 2021, everybody was actually largely retracting and pulling things out of the system that weren't mission critical, because it was hard enough just to assure that we could do those on a consistent basis. So bringing innovation it was not much time really anywhere in the supply chain for it at that point.
Thinking about innovation, I was going to bring it up later, but we're talking about it now, so let's just jump right in. Our data is showing that operators are leaning more innovative than they have in the past, eager to get help on innovation, especially the smaller operators. Their concern seems to be, how do I stay on trend? How do I stay ahead of trends? How do I stay innovative to keep driving traffic? Where the larger operators are a little bit still concerned with supply chain. And I guess it makes sense, right? When you think about a large chain, consistency is key for them. How do we take this and then replicate it everywhere and make sure it's the same? For the smaller operators, how do they stay nimble and agile and dynamic in a changing environment? And that is something that the data reflected back was, how do we help them do that? The operator data is telling us that they want to focus more on the patron experience, less reactive than they've had to be in the past. They're really gearing towards patron experience. How do we as manufacturers, supply chains, and partners in the industry help them achieve that?
I think from a manufacturing perspective, we'd find that to be great news, because each respective manufacturer tends to have a really good idea of what patrons in different segments are looking for as it pertains to their products and their categories, and would love to work with operators to help drive that. Because if we can help the customer win by making the patron happy, then everyone in the supply chain wins. And most importantly, we have a satisfied and hopefully repeat customer coming back to that operator.
Yeah, from a sales perspective, I think oftentimes where we can help, it's with those independent operators. So when you're dealing with chains and the larger operators, they have marketing teams, they have teams within that can help them with that. But from a sales perspective, that's where we can go in and help an independent operator by bringing them innovations and showing them how they can compete with those larger operators and chains.
And selfishly, from an agency standpoint, we'd like to participate in that new product innovation a little earlier in the process, right? Bring that voice of the operator, that bridge to local that we provide, bring that into the process sooner so that we're not getting to the end point and then realizing, oh, I wish we would have told this story or had this avenue to pursue, right? If we can help insert ourselves into that process earlier with our manufacturer partners, I think we'll all get data to help make better decisions for the success of the products as they head out.
We'll take all the help we can get in terms of that data and perspective. The best companies in the industry fail with innovation much more than they succeed, because even with great data, it is difficult to actually predict what people will do when actually presented with the offering. And in our channels, we have, as you mentioned, the really large customers. One advantage that they have is their scale allows them to have control over the distribution of the product. Once they decide to get something, they can facilitate and enable getting that to all the locations. Where when we're talking on the independent operators, like you're mentioning, that frequently becomes a little bit more of a challenge, because finding the right timing to get products into the appropriate means of distribution so that those operators have access to them when they want them is an ongoing area of opportunity really throughout the industry.
In our conversation around colleges and universities, we spoke with Peter Testori from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and he expressed his desire to participate early on in the process of new item development also, and that by the time he saw them at a food show and he hadn't seen it earlier or been involved, it's a little bit harder to influence him with that sale. I know colleges and universities are not exactly the same as street operators or independent operators, but I think that yearning from the operator community to be involved in the conversation is important to announce.
And college and university do have some of the same struggles as an independent operator. Their competitors are those same operators. So when you're at college and university, their competition is national chains. So they do have some similar struggles to where they need to find innovation in order to keep their students eating on campus as opposed to going across the street to the national chain.
I think there's also a balance we tend to try to strike between leveraging macro data trends where we'll have a very large sample of a target demographic to understand what it is that they are looking for and what they want. And we absolutely benefit from having data points from a C&U food service director or other key operators as well. We just don't want to necessarily lean all in one direction or another because all of that has a little bit of a degree of inherent bias to it. So that is, and similarly, when we work, because we do quite regularly, we do lots of custom work, for example, with certain operators, there is definite value in allowing the operators in early in the process to help develop and determine things. We also want to be upfront of things we can or can't do early on in the process to be very effective and efficient with everybody's time.
From the survey, we've unearthed around 9 or 10 different influences that operators take to source information and to gather information. Let's take a little bit of time discussing each one. I think the most popular one, logically, and what the data reflects, is peer-to-peer. They're asking their colleagues, they're asking their friends, they're asking other industry professionals, what are you doing? What are you seeing? What products do you have? And what are your needs? Are they the same as mine? Do you have any, can we discuss that a little bit? Do you have any insights into that?
So I think it is pretty common for people to reach out to those that they know and trust to kind of look to source that information and to see how can we learn from others. So I know that in the manufacturing community, non-competitive manufacturers will check in with each other. How are you reaching this? How are you sourcing great new ideas? And also, we have relationships, whether with our sales agency or with other customers, to say, with what partners are you having the greatest success in terms of sourcing great ideas that are truly actionable for you and are really resonating with the patrons, with your customers, to see how we might be able to build on that momentum or to learn from things that they thought would work well that really unfortunately haven't to date.
Joe, another one is contacting a salesperson, which is right up our alley. What role does our team play in the whole communication cycle?
Yeah, the sales agency roles really evolved over the years. There was a time where the distributor salesperson was a lot more hands-on with their salespeople, and they really lean on the sales agency to be that provider of ideas, innovation, and conversely, then the relationship we have with our clients is we take that information and bring that forward to our manufacturers so that they understand what the field is looking for.
We're trying to communicate on both sides, right? Why it worked. Hey, we sold this, and here's the reason why. The operator told us why they made the sale, and also why they did not, maybe. What was the cause that it didn't work? So I think we're trying to really hone in on both sides. When we win, help us understand why so we can do more of it. And when we don't, help us understand why so we don't keep banging our head against that wall.
You mentioned that bridge to local, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be in the field. We're supposed to understand what the operators are looking for, what's working, what's not working, and then it's important that we're communicating that.
Yeah, I think the dynamic of communication is really critical. And a key thing to reinforce to that loop is obviously everybody loves to quickly communicate wins and successes. And we should, and that's great. The reality is we probably successfully sell maybe 25 or 35% of the time. So a majority of those calls are not resulting in a closure. And we want to understand, why is that? Is it that the proposition wasn't well understood? Is it that it's just not a great proposition, or we didn't structure it well, so that we can learn from that and determine how to optimize it moving forward?
It's such a good point. Our salespeople, it's probably the hardest thing for them to grasp is that it's not always about the sale. You know, they want to sell and that's success, but a lot of times just the information, just making sure we're capturing that information is just as important.
It helps reinforce that targeting process down the road too, right? Oh, we should go here instead of there, or look left instead of right. I think it ties up that loop nicely. I think social media plays a role in that also. There's data at the speed of light, right? We're seeing things happen in real time, and then consumers are immediately looking for that experience. Hey, I just saw this baked feta trend. Where can I find that at a restaurant the next day? Or the Dubai chocolate, or right? So the speed at which things are happening is so much faster. How are we helping influence operators through social media channels? Are we? Should we be? How are we doing it today?
I think our first step is how we find the right mix from a digital or a social perspective to engage with the operator community. One advantage that those means have is how readily they can be customized, so that something that we're sending to a C&U is different than we'd send to healthcare or to the street or a commercial operator. That's something years ago was much more difficult to do. And then track how that's going, but knowing that there are different demographics and different trend lines by segment, we look to set up the communication plan by segment so that we can be differentiating our message in a way that will more likely resonate with them. And we have to select, based on resources and time, where to put it, whether you put it on Instagram or LinkedIn or whichever channels you would pick. For many years, it was just the website. And now that can easily, the customer can easily be directed there through other means of digital or social that they're engaging with on a much more frequent basis.
That's exactly what the data is reflecting as well, is that they're, in the past, would seek out the manufacturer website, the brand website. Now they're getting there, but through the step of some other social media buzz that they've created. And then ultimately the call to action ends up on the manufacturer website. We know the manufacturer website is still a big influence. Ben, as a manufacturer, what is the most important information you feel is critical to keep on those manufacturer websites or keep updated?
Well, there's always baseline information that never goes out of style in terms of key product specifications and recommendations for offerings by segment and things of that nature that are then sitting there in a very user-friendly format. What we continue to see more of and wanting to spend more time on is key trend information. Because overall, the real challenge, or a real challenge in the industry in the last several years that just continues to grow is the patrons and the consumers, their expectations are getting higher and more sophisticated. And the capabilities in the back of the house of an operator are more challenged than ever. So this has created a bit of an inequity of what the customer's expecting when they walk in, and the ability of the operator to deliver on that and have the customer think that they just got a really good value that met their need. So the degree to which manufacturers continue to try to get ever more value-added information is really a key area of focus for us.
That's such a great point. I never really thought of that. The consumer expectations are through the roof, right? Higher than ever. And the kitchen challenges in delivering a quality plate of food are also more demanding than ever. The stress these operators are under is remarkable. What can we do as a community to meet them where they are, to help take something off of their plate or alleviate some of that stress? Is that what you're thinking of with new products that come out? Is that?
I think that it's really on both sides. So it could be in certain areas, it's leveraging existing items and offerings and becoming more collaborative between the operator, the sales agency, the distributor, the manufacturer, to say, here's a relatively finite sort of cupboard of offerings, and here, based on these different trends, are things you can readily and easily make and readily replicate that meet these trends, that meet food cost and are very turnkey to make. And then also, depending on different areas of focus, here are some great trends that we can help you capitalize on to do it, because they're struggling enough just to get the food out to the front of the house, right, and to maintain their staffing and their labor and have the deliveries show up. So they don't have that much time to think about this. So the degree to which we can collaborate and help bring them broader turnkey solutions is how I think we provide the greatest value.
Yep. You have to understand the needs of the operator. And to your point, labor is a huge one now, and just the skill of labor. So that's a great place where we can intersect as a sales agency and our manufacturers to provide those solutions. But the first thing is understanding their needs and providing solutions.
Let's talk about the reality of food shows. It's a love-hate relationship, I think, for all of us. How do we optimize the food show experience for all of us?
Well, food shows is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. It is a large expense for the sales agency. So it's an expense in people and time. A lot of effort goes into manning the food shows, to making sure that we have the people there, the right people there. We're supporting our manufacturers when we're there. And ideally, it should be an opportunity in 1 day or 2 days to get in front of multiple operators. What we do with that time is where the question comes into play. Do we have the right operators? And in the short amount of time you have with them, are you able to make an impactful presentation that's going to help them and link them to the manufacturers that they're representing? And oftentimes the shows get lost, and they feel like large catering events that you're running, where you're just providing samples as opposed to being the selling opportunity that they are.
Yeah, I agree. I think food shows represent both a potential large opportunity and a significant challenge at the same time, depending on how we're able to approach them. First is, we need to make sure that we understand, okay, so is this show dedicated primarily to a given segment or subset? Is it a broader or more general audience? And then having the planning on the front end to really focus against having fewer but more impactful solutions, and having solutions in advance that are tailored towards particular segment needs. So if someone from healthcare or C&U or B&I comes up, the team knows what are the one or two areas they should focus against. Ideally, that is things we're suggesting that are all in distribution with wherever the show is occurring, because it can be frustrating to get someone excited about a given opportunity and them not be able to readily access it. So I agree with you. It takes a lot of time to prepare for it effectively and to make sure that we're getting something from it and having the customers feel that it's a good use of their time as well.
Is it an opportunity for us to showcase some of the trends in action and how a flavor profile might come through or something like that? I'm assuming that's...
It can be, but not always. If it's okay, I'd like to go back to what Ben just brought up regarding food shows and the segments. I think maybe that's an area where there's an opportunity for some improvement. I'm thinking about our salespeople, and our salespeople definitely need a different skill set in this day and age. They're much more specialized. Planning process is much longer, as we discussed before, for a sale, that they have to have a broader understanding of the needs of the operator. And I think maybe that's where we run into some of our issues at a food show. You have somebody standing there hoping to be an expert in so many different fields, so many different segments. There may be an opportunity there to create some specialization at the shows. If you think about a K-12 show, it's usually staffed by people that have a greater understanding of the needs of K-12. Whereas at a food show, you have someone standing in a booth that's hoping to have an understanding of several different kinds of operators.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And the biggest dynamic really that everybody's managing is the most finite resource, which is time. And in an industry like ours, where there's well over 1 million operators and so many differentiated customer segments, a question becomes, and what we certainly challenge our team, and I know all teams are challenged to do, which is how do we spend as much time as possible with customers that assign a value to the value that we can offer? Because not every customer values what we do, and that's okay. But because there's ample numbers that do. And as we all know, the reason, generally speaking, that any of us or our customers default to the lowest price as the denominator by which they're making a decision is what they're saying is, I don't see enough differentiation or value in things other than price to have that drive my decision. So the opportunity, as you said earlier, is at things like food shows, is that's a chance for us to show that intrinsic value. Yes, the price has to be competitive and the economics have to work. That's a venue in which we can say within your menu economics, here's how you can provide greater value to your customer to charge a higher menu price and get more repeat customers than you would get doing things the way that you've done them historically.
It's that value beyond the box that I think, you have to find the right operator, the right product at the right time.
Let's stay on the distributor for a minute. As you can imagine, the distributor's knowledge base is more shallow than those closer to the manufacturer, but they are still a major influence in the buying decisions. How can we close or fill that gap?
I think, the distributor plays a critical role because we cannot get the case from our warehouse to the operator without them. And the reality is that the operators, generally speaking, their closest relationship in the supply chain is with their distributors. So a lot of this has to do with the distributors, especially the broadliners that have thousands and thousands of offerings. We need to continue as manufacturers to find ways to make it easy for them to sell our products and to receive orders and facilitate them. We are certainly from an industry dynamic, like any product category. There's too many products in distribution. There's great reasons for each one as to why it's there, but in aggregate, it ends up kind of clogging up the system. So we want to continue to drive focus on a core set of items and working, with agency partners and our sales teams to figure out how to find complementary sales, because that then makes it easier both for the distributor and for the operator to get down to a more core set of sort of everyday products, and then whether it's LTOs or periodic innovation. This is where there's an opportunity to do that. The big challenge in our industry is it's both size and diversity. If you've got 1.5 million places we could all go out to eat when we're out of home, and it's across so many different segments that have different regulatory and demographic needs, it's pretty hard to find the sweet spot that meets a majority of those. And it's something we'll just have to continue to sort out over time.
And distributors like us as an agency are servicing a lot of brands, a lot of manufacturers, sometimes with competing priorities or changing priorities at a moment's notice, or things ebb and flow.
As Ben pointed out earlier, for a distributor rep, they have to know a little bit about tens of thousands of items. This is where the sales agency can come in and be a partner, not just to the distributor, but also to our manufacturers, because we can help narrow that focus down. We can help train, we can help guide, and we can help bring those solutions, because it's just impossible for a distributor rep to have a deep knowledge of so many different products. The sales agency can clean that up. We can come in and we can get them the information that they need, that their operators need, and we can also train them, support them, and oftentimes when a distributor rep's not able to be there at the operator, we can be that bridge.
Something else that's evolved over the years is today a majority of orders that operators are placing with distributors are being done online in the absence of a DSR. So now we have sort of a multi-pronged approach that has to be developed in terms of training. So we still need to have training of really core elements for the DSR for that percentage of the time that they're in. But a majority of the time, the operator is making those orders just by themselves online. Now we need to figure out, how do we embed and partner with distribution and our agencies to have training that when they go online, there can be a link that they can see to see how that's trained. And especially what we found is, many years ago when I was in sales, you needed to go in the back of the house in some cramped office with the chef and walk the chef or whoever was the main person in the back of the house through things. As we get to the younger generations, they don't want to see people, and they have 20 minutes here or late at night or before. They have sort of an unplanned schedule as to when they have time to do this. So they want things that are more on demand and can be available when they want them. So the fact that that dynamic exists, in addition to most of the orders being enabled online, means we need a whole training regimen that can be done on demand digitally. I think digital is key. It allows for real-time customization, and as things change. I think another thing that's also evolved is the solutions that we bring in. There has to be a clear understanding of how that solution can be implemented and executed, because within operators and distributors, well, for all of us in the supply chain, there are less people needing to do more stuff. And you can go on lots of calls and have the customer say, this is great, this meets exactly what we're doing. My struggle is I don't have the time to make this change. And so we have to be able within there, not just to show the solution, but to show, and here's how you would execute this solution, and here's the benefit that it will drive. Because what happens sometimes is you go in on a call, the person will say, I think this is great, but here's the thing. My boss is never going to go for this because they said that we couldn't do this. You have to essentially give them the ammunition they need to be able to go sell it to the people to whom they need to sell it in their operation. and they don't necessarily have the staffing and resources to enable or facilitate changes as easily. So we have to help empower them to do that more effectively than we used to years ago.
E-commerce and ordering portals continue to increase in usage, and there are more of them out there. How can manufacturers be in the driver's seat? And how do we as the sales agency continue the conversation? How are we helping to influence what's happening out there?
E-commerce continues to be obviously a really large factor. I forget what the exact percentage is, but it's high. I think 75+% of operators that are placing their orders through distributors via e-commerce portals. From a manufacturer point of view, what we continue to do is how do we get better information available to those portals, not just the basic spec information, but also have great digital images, have culinary solutions and things of that nature. It is both an opportunity and a challenge still in the industry that, as opposed to, retail or grocery where they have essentially one platform that everybody uses, we still have many out there in the industry, which are a bit of a challenge to try to keep up with. So ideally over time, as we get more developed and sophisticated, we'll be able to get to what is that sort of one source of truth in that regard, because clearly this is a trend that's just going to continue to grow.
For the sales agency, the move towards digital is an opportunity for us. As great as the imagery can be and the information found on these digital ordering sites, there's always going to be a need for hands-on training, for hands-on sampling, and that's where the sales agency can step in and be that support for an operator on behalf of our manufacturers.
Excellent. Well, I think we'll continue to customize. We'll continue to specialize. We'll continue to rethink how we communicate, I think on all sides, with operators who are already stretched pretty thin. And we'll just keep rolling with the industry changes. Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Bridge to Local with Affinity Group, where manufacturers and local operators connect for success. Stay tuned for more insights and visit AffinitySales.com to see how we can help drive your business forward. See you next time.